Hi, folks. So this week we're going to work on finishing up our um, interactive story games, and we need to do some more intense coding than we've done in the past. So I wanted to show you something called nesting, and you watched a short video with Bucky, hopefully before this, but that doesn't really show you how nesting applies to your particular program that you're doing right now. So I thought I'd show you an example of how nesting is important to this particular activity. So this is the web page that we're looking at here, what we used in our sample. And I wanted to show you how, just to kind of remind you how this is supposed to run. So this is the scary truth. So let's run this program and see what happens. So would you like to play a game? If I say yes, and okay, a small child is in a small house with his parents. All of a sudden, there's a loud bang outside, and his parents disappear. Will he find his parents or the grave first? Are you ready? So I say, okay. Then it says, you leave your house with a few belongings. The street you exit onto goes east. Do you want to go? So I say yes. You hear a roar. Do you wish to continue? And I say yes. And as you go through the story, this continues, so we won't go through it all, but that's how the story continues. So, but what happens if I say no? No, I wouldn't. Well, let's just say yes for this one. And I'll say okay here. And then you leave your house with a few belongings. The street you exit onto goes east. Do you want to go? What if I say no? Okay, it says game over, and that's it. The game ends. So, but that's because of the way the author of this code did what's called nesting. Um, it's hard to see here, but basically he put one if then statement into another if statement and then into another if statement. So, and this is a long program, so it's kind of hard to see that, but I'm going to show you a smaller example. So what I did was I took the code out of that and wrote it into this, and I wrote this code step by step. First step, second step, third step. So we can kind of take a look at it. So you can see I just kind of did the important thing. So here's the variable. You leave your house with a few belongings. The street you exit onto goes east. Do you want to go? If road equals yes, then document write yay. Else, if road equals no, document write you're a loser, the game is over. So then I say, you hear a roar. Do you wish to continue? If the user answers yes, right, you find a big bear. Else if user answer equals no, document right, you stand there scared, you die, and the game's over. So let's run this. This seems like the way that you would think through the story in your mind, you know, the first step, then the second step, then the third step. But let's see what happens when we run this code. Do you want to go? And I'm just going to say, we know it works if I say yes, so I'm going to just say no. It says loser, game over. Then I say okay, but it keeps going. You hear a roar. Do you wish to continue? No. Click okay. You stand there scared and you die, and then it says game over, and that's the end of my program. So, but what happened was I really wanted it to end after the first no. Do you want to go? I say no, and I wanted it to end here. Why does it keep going? Well, the program, we didn't tell the program to stop in any particular way. The program doesn't know to stop, so it continues on. It reads each line one at a time, 16, 17. You said game over, but we didn't tell the computer to stop, so of course it's going to go on to line 19 and read the next question. So how can we fix this? Well, what we have to do here is we have to nest the elements inside of each other. What we really have is one if-then statement, and then the game should end. Do you want to go? If you say yes, the game's going to continue and a lot more things are going to happen. But if you say no, the game should end right there. So what we have to do, basically, is we have to take everything else that happens after you say yes and insert it inside this statement right here. So this sounds a little bit crazy, but really this question only comes up. Do you hear a roar? You wish to continue? This only comes up if you had said yes. So what I need to do is I need to copy this statement here. And instead of having it be after, I'm going to cut it. It needs to be inside here. If the road equals yes, then we're going to say yay, and then we're going to continue on, and we're going to say, you hear a roar, do you wish to continue? And then if the answer is yes, you find a big bear. Otherwise, you find no, you stand there and you die and game's over. And what you want to do here is you want to indent a little bit so that you can see the difference between this if statement and this else if statement. So here's your yes up here, and here's your no down here. And you can tell they go together because they're indented at the same level. And then inside that, you have another if-else statement. So here's the if for that. Do you hear a roar? Do you wish to continue? If answer equals yes, there's that. It's indented here. Else if the answer is no, you're indented here. So these things are at the same level. Now, after I say, you hear a roar, do you wish to continue? If the answer is yes, you find a big bear, something else happens after this. So let's say, I could say, I'll just copy this. You are carrying a big stick that you didn't realize you had. Do you stay and fight, or do you run? So, and then inside here, I'm gonna do another if statement. So if, and I'm gonna use a different variable. You could use the same variable throughout, but I'm gonna use a different variable. So I'm gonna say fight is the variable. So I'm gonna say if fight equals do stay and fight, and we'll have the person say fight, then document, all right, you win, the bear apologizes for kidnapping your parents, and you all go home and enjoy a nice bowl of porridge. There. So now, let's see. And by the way, as I mentioned earlier, you might want to say in a question like this where it's not really clear what you're going to answer, do you stay and fight or do you run? You might want to say type, fight, or run. So the person knows what to type, because there could be an infinite number of variables that the person could write in there and your computer program won't know how to respond. So if fight equals fight, then document right, you win. The bear apologizes for kidnapping your parents and you all go home and enjoy a nice bowl of porridge. Else if fight equals run, then let's see, what can I say? You leave without finding out the truth. So those are the two options. And now when we save this and we run it, it should run more smoothly and stop when we want it to stop. So let's try it. So, except of course it doesn't run. I'm going to pause now and see where I made my mistake, and then I'll help you. I'll show you some ways to troubleshoot. All right, hang on. Hi, I'm back. So this is a great example of troubleshooting, which we'll definitely run into a lot of as you continue writing your program. So the first thing that you want to check when you're troubleshooting is, did you add all the semicolons that you were supposed to add? And did you add all the brackets where you were supposed to add the brackets? Because 9 out of 10 times it's either a semicolon problem or a bracket problem. So it looks like I put semicolons where the semicolons were supposed to be. Oops, except this one. I missed one here. So I'll put that in there. Semicolons go at the end of document.write statements. They also go at the end of variable statements. So that should help. I'm going to save that and I'm going to run and see if that fixed it. So, oops, nope, it still doesn't run. So now let me check the brackets. So here's my first if statement, and everything in there needs to be in a set of brackets. So there's the beginning, there's the end bracket. So that's fine. And then inside this if statement, I have another variable, and here's another if statement. So here's the opening bracket for that. There's the closing bracket for that. Inside here, I have another variable with another if statement. Here's the opening bracket for that. There's the close bracket. Does that look right? Not so much. So let's see. Here's my if fight equals fight, document write. You win, the bear apologizes, and you all go home and enjoy a nice bowl of porridge. Oops, I forgot the closing bracket right there. So I think that that's going to be my problem. And then we have else if here, fight equals run. There's the two brackets there. And this bracket, where does this bracket go? So let's see. I think I might still be off one bracket, but let's try it. Nope, I'm still off. So all right, let me pause and I'll find the next spot. That I think it's wrong. Hang on. Hi, so I think what's going on here is that this bracket is extra. I should have closed that if statement before, and I think I threw in an extra bracket here by accident. So I'm going to delete this bracket and save and run and see if that works. And it does work. So you leave the house with few belongings. The street you exit onto goes east. Do you want to go? Say no. Okay, great. Game over. Loser. That's it. And my game stops. So that's how you make the timing and the flow of your story work a little bit better. And just as a piece of advice, it's really good to go step by step. And it's definitely helpful to indent so that you can see where each if and else if statement lines up. So I'm going to pause now and I'll come back in another video and give you a couple of more pieces of advice about how to give the user some information if they type something other than the if or the else if statements. We'll see what we can do about that. And we'll talk about also double checking and making sure that we have the right HTML with line breaks and so the thing is readable. So we'll talk about both of those things in the next video. Thanks. Bye-bye.